episode of Rebel City podcast, actually episode 99, which is, I mean, both mind blown for a perspective of what we started this podcast, and if you'd have said it would get to 99, I'd be like, don't know about that. But also, like, crazy how long it's took us to get here, considering that we've been sitting in the 90s for about 2 months, 3 months or something. But
aye,
such is life.
things have
Just now.
definitely slowed down in the last couple of months.
Aye, mate.
I'm all right with it. I mean, like, it's hard, for everybody. And I think the last thing I want to be doing is running about chasing folk, trying to get them to appear on a podcast when, you know what I mean, there's other things happening, you know what I mean? I think it's, as the turn of the years came, I think we're all feeling it now, you know what I mean? Like, I think there's a real fatigue setting in. And obviously the extremely quiet stuff the year we've had has allowed us to all just, chill out a wee bit. There's no been anything that we needed to worry about or anything causing major existential crises anywhere, you know what I mean? Like, so, at least with that.
Aye, absolutely, mate. I think, like, 2021, it was almost like, and I'm dealing with this quite a lot with clients, and I dealt with it myself as well, man. Like, you're talking about that fatigue. I think that fatigue's actually, like, set in because people had thought that the finishing line was the 31st of January.
Yeah.
31st of December 2020, and it was almost like new me, new year, new me, but it was like new year, new world, and it didn't quite transpire like that. I think I woke up on the 3rd, was that the Monday, and just felt really fucking deflated, mate, like really deflated, because you've got all that new year energy, or like, right, what's my goals for the year? And it all just had to just go, no, like, you can't even go in and start putting your mind into that sort of growth mentality or like change, because really and truly, what can we do other than go to your work and come back and stay in your house? So I felt that myself, and went through a couple of wee days of just really having to sort of manage myself. But then, as I said, like, seeing sessions with clients, mate, everybody's just going through this whole sort of weird, it's New Year, 2021 was supposed to be it. This pandemic still no went anywhere, but also, like you were saying off mic there, mate, like Boris said in his first, I think he slipped. I don't think he meant it, because Nicola didn't say anything about it, but now we're looking at March, and then it'll be a full year that we've been in some kind of lockdown restrictions, which I think if you had told us that back in March last year, although I was talking to somebody about this, although at the time, if they had went, look guys, this could last anywhere up to like a year, 18 months, everybody would have been like, holy fuck. But I think we would have got to our systems back then, so we've been kind of kicking it down the road. And I think what we've found is just this wall, a reality, just like, actually the finishing line's probably Easter. I think that's what they said, like, after Easter. So I think that's just getting to everybody, mate, do you know what I mean? And myself included, do you know what I mean?
I've had to be pretty conscious. I mean, I know obviously I've seen you posting on Instagram when you were, I think you were working some weights in the room and talking about how you were still trying to make sure that, the routine is maintained. Like, I know obviously routine's a big thing for you. Like, for me, I've been trying to concentrate, as I was saying online on the Rebel City feed, like, just about trying to find positives, you know what I mean? Like, so, the fact that the vaccine's Roland's one, that I'm just trying to, keep there as something to, keep us afloat. Like, I've actually tried to, like, really think about, the extra time with the family. So Stacey's now working from home. Alex is now, obviously working from home in the sort of school sense. She's turned 16 this year. Having that wee extra time, as a kind of like close quarters family unit has been something, sitting down like Spanish homework and just stupid stuff like that is something that I'm really trying to be like, do you know what? This is a positive, getting like bonus time where it is she's now starting to go into the world sort of thing.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. Especially at the age of Alex is it, mate. You're not going to get an opportunity like this to spend this kind of quality time. I think that what a lot of people's problems were, and this goes back to what I was saying there when they said in March, 3 weeks, is that people just didn't take it. No, that they didn't take it seriously. We've also got that problem, but they didn't take it as like seriously. So all these growing pains that we're starting to see that people are facing up to, like Mr. Diamond, do you know what I mean? Like fucking homeschooling, it got abandoned because it was like, look, what are we, March, April, got a month of this, summer holidays. By the time we get to the other side of summer holidays, this is going to be a distant memory and we'll go back to school and things will go back to normal, which is completely understandable considering the information that we were getting given. But now, like, people are just like, fuck me, you kidding me on? I'm going to need to start this homeschooling again. This goes back to what I was saying. All these growing pains and all these things could have just been over and done with quickly. It's almost like putting off any sort of difficult message, even if it's like a family member or like a mate. Say, for instance, like a mate's done something to upset you. You've got two choices. You can either engage with it then and there and get the monkey off your back, or you can kick it down the fucking road. And every time you kick it down the road, it just gets bigger and bigger to you. Do you know what I mean? So I feel really bad for everybody. We're all in this together, I get that, but I feel kind of bad for people with kids. I actually get a lot of respect and a lot of admiration for you, particularly in New Stacey's in the same boat, because I know that Stacey was retail, but there seems to be like furloughs, one thing that you need to deal with, 20% off your salary is another thing that comes with that. Spending all your time indoors, another thing. If you're having to do that with a significant other, there's something else. But then when you add into it your kids' education, it's a powder keg, mate, an absolute powder keg of a situation. So I feel for people, man.
Aye. Especially, I mean, people with multiple sort of young kids. Like, I mean, I think I'm extremely fortunate that Alex is 16 and has her head screwed on roughly the right way anyway, that she's doing a lot of this herself, but it's been good to get involved with other stuff. But anybody with like extremely young children, like primary school children or whatever, like how the fuck they're doing it, man, give them all medals, you know what I
Aye,
mean?
for sure, mate. See, off the back of what you were talking about with my Instagram post, I actually did a couple. And I took a bit of a back seat after I did a couple. I was getting quite a good response. I mean, really, like, I was doing that shameless thing. Like, I'm trying to get clients. Like,
of course.
I mean, ultimately, my whole thing is I want to help people. So the way I'm not a big fan of people that are out there, like, touting businesses or stuff on social media. I get it. It's free advertising, really, if you've got a big following. But I want to keep it sort of personal. I don't, but at the same time, the way I sort of justify it to myself is that I ultimately want to try and fucking help some people here. So if I put a message out there that catches an attention, like, well, look, I'm still working out as I normally do. I'm trying to keep my routine as good as possible for me to feel good during this sort of time, and it sort of attracts a bit of interaction, and you might get a client or something out there. But so that was Monday, and then on the I think that was a Tuesday, and then on the Thursday I posted again about meditation, and then on the Saturday I do a thing I've not actually spoke about like in the podcast, but I'm doing a thing with some guys at Stanford University, which is like, well, it's like Wednesday. It's like Wednesday morning for me, but Tuesday night for them. Where they're like peers, and we go into like a sort of peer support group, and we talk about different things that they've got. I mean, these people are just wildly more talented and more experienced than I am, mate. Like some of the stuff that they're talking about, I'm actually sitting there getting imposter syndrome, but it's to encourage people to learn, and I'm learning, so I'm keeping mindful of that. But one of them spoke about a client they dealt with who was like an actual like professor at Stanford, and he was dealing with a thing called productivity addiction. And see, as soon as somebody said that in the group, my arsehole went, because I knew straight away. I was like,
explanation to understand why that made you uncomfortable.
I knew straight away what was coming. I knew that they were going to be like, if you do this, if you do that. And honestly, mate, it was like, I was like, fuck, mate. Wow, they were just talking about all these sort of things of, do you feel like less a person or like low self-esteem if you do not achieve certain things in your day? And I was like, right, so that's me. And they were just like, well, what are you going to do if you can't achieve that? You're just going to go back to being depressed and having severe anxiety and all these sort of things. And my eyes got opened a wee bit, and I was like, fuck, mate, there is actually a thing where you can be too productive and you can put too much pressure on yourself. And it was quite funny. Like, I had to turn my video off because I just sat like, I can't believe this, man. This is like reading my fucking mind, the way that they were like, so that the client had said that they feel like this. I was like, fuck me, and it's just that sort of realization that even though the routine is what keeps me stable, it's sort of like kind of trying to work towards not making it a non-negotiable to me feeling good about myself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean, coming back for the furlough, I was saying to you, my re-entry to the work world or the working world had been a bit bumpy, and a lot of what you're talking about was in play. You know, where you're coming back and the entire terms of your everyday life they basically need to be renegotiated. You know what I mean? You need to reset your expectations and stuff like that. But being out of the mix for 7-8 months at a time, and a lot of people will be feeling the same. And on this one, when they come back, that their roles and their positions have significantly changed just as a result of circumstance. So if you're not achieving what you were prior to the break, or prior to the change in circumstances, you could probably still really take a hit with your self-esteem. I know that I've asked serious questions of myself in a working capacity since coming back. Thankfully, my gaffer's been absolutely brand new about it, and has worked with me to get me back to a place where I feel like I'm actually producing at the right level again. You know what I mean? So, but then also with Stace, see, working from home, she's having that conversation with herself, and again, that might be something that a lot of folk are having today, where they look at how they work in the office or in whatever their environment normally is, and then when they come home with a laptop and a headset or a mobile phone, and the pace significantly slows, you know what I mean? Like, you're then probably in the same boat again, where that lack of productivity might have an effect on you.
Aye, absolutely, mate. Absolutely. And I think we could have a conversation about the stuff that I learned, but it's boring, really. At the end of the day, as I think
another ways to learn, but man,
sounds interesting. Basically, what's happened is that I've adopted that, doing the generalised counselling, mental health stuff with a whole shit ton of diplomas sitting behind it, where I can dip in and out to get skills to help people.
Yeah.
What basically happened was I was walking home for a full day of therapy and felt to myself, I could be doing more to help these people. I feel like they're telling me, so this is my own sort of drive, but they're telling me that they're feeling good when they come and they see me. But I'm I want to give these people the skills and the tools to go and just live the rest. They shouldn't need to come and pay me every week. Do you know what I mean? That sort of repeated thing.
The goal is that they eventually don't need you.
Aye, so I started looking into stuff like that, and relapse prevention for depression and anxiety, which actually exists. And I stumbled across a guy called David Burns, and he's one of the pioneers of cognitive behavioural therapy. Created it in the 60s and 70s, and he's still training people at Stanford. But now he's got a body of staff, and they each take a call. And one of them, thankfully, does a worldwide therapist call, where if you want to apply, you need to fill in, you need to submit your intentions, and they let you into a Zoom call, send you a Zoom invite, and you're sitting there with people from all over the world, and they're talking about loads of different perspectives, loads of different standpoints, and loads of different clients and their failings, and you're sitting going, fuck, man, these are therapists that have been doing this for 30 years, and they're telling me about how they failed last week. And then I'm walking home for practice and going, I should be doing better, I should be doing more, and realising, fuck, I've only been doing this for a year. Chill the fuck out. So it gives you that good perspective. But I mean, I think I've learned more in the last 3 weeks since the 1st of January. And any diploma, any university course that I've done, just listening to these guys' experiences that have been doing it for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, been incredible, and listening to them advocate so passionately for certain types of therapy, then going reading about that and going, right, let's get a good bit here, let's get a good bit there, can lift that out and put it together. But it's free, which is unbelievable, mate. Absolutely unbelievable to speak to these people, do you know what I mean?
You need to keep an eye out for, folk we can invite in to talk, maybe not necessarily at Stanford, but in and around the communities, because, I'm when it comes to any sort of new idea, I'm all for let's explore it and let's see where we're going with it, because, we've obviously looked at a few like UBI and, violence reduction and all these types of things that are now starting to come to the fore, any more of that's going on elsewhere, I'd be delighted to get into, man.
I didn't even think of that, mate, and I think I could probably even reach out to the main man. I think he'd probably do it. He's got his own podcast. If anybody out there is actually thinking, oh, I'm quite interested, that guy sounds interesting, or just even I wonder what's attracted Paul to go and engage with him, because it was their podcast that started it. His podcast called Feeling Good. And honestly, mate, it's unreal. It's an unreal resource. He does live therapy sessions with people on this podcast. So he's literally lifting the veil and letting you see what sits behind, which to me is a confidence and a belief in your own ability that just doesn't really exist, because therapy is all very cloak and dagger, and it feels like that anyway. So if anybody's actually I'd quite like to listen, go and listen to Feeling Good. You might know he's got a very specific technique that he uses, and he's got a very specific way that he deals with his clients, and you might not buy into that, but the way that, just from a therapist point of view, listening to him deal with people's like gold, like a pot of gold. Yeah, like this guy's one of the world leaders in therapy, and I can actually sit down and listen to him and then listen to what he thinks about what went on. It's unbelievable, mate. And it starts with, he explains his message in like 5 different podcasts. And then I think he spends about 20 or 30 podcasts actually saying, see, if you want to adopt us without paying a therapist, here's how you do it. You'll have good results. You won't get the same results as if you have a professional.
Open sourcing his work, basically.
Oh, mate, unbelievable. So, that's what I've been up to, basically, the last couple of weeks, mate. But I think, like, 2021, if we thought, well, talking about there, the red line happened on the 31st of December, but it wasn't like the sweetness and gold that we were hoping for at the other side. It seems to have been more of the same, but exaggerated almost.
Yeah. Going back into the national lockdown was obviously no ideal, and as sarcastically as I was suggesting it earlier on that nothing's happened in the last 2 weeks, we obviously know that that's not the case. I mean, I kind of think of a time where I've experienced like the media in terms of like bombardment the way I have done in the last couple of weeks. Like, I think we being cooped up and obviously getting that, new year, new movement sort of thing going, as you were talking about before, Hon, to then also be like kind of like surrounded what feels like constant just stream of like bad news, probably hasn't helped either. You know what I mean? We obviously went through the lockdowns, nationally, and then pretty much straight into the Capitol riots in America, and like the scenes that like were just, there was part of it that was like comical, and like we obviously had a few Darwin Award nominees, and the guy that tasered his own balls and had a heart attack. And
I missed that.
So one protester died by setting off his taser on his own balls and triggering a heart attack and dying. Another woman who broke in through a window with a flag, "Don't tread on me," was stamped to death.
Oh my God.
Aye.
Sorry.
On the other side, there obviously were like real, sort of deaths. I think there's been 5 or 6 deaths, including yesterday, one of the police officers involved committed suicide, or sort of took his own life.
Did he? And was he a protester? Was he one of the?
This was one of the DC police officers took his own life. I know. So there is a real death toll. Like, so as much as there was part of it that you were like, fucking hell, this is wild. And then after a couple of hours of the sort of saturated news that I watched, you started to see the Buffalo guy and folk running about with podiums, and you were a bit like, oh Christ, this is kind of petered out and like get a bit ridiculous and silly. Just get them out the building. And then in the subsequent days, obviously the aftermath and what it means for democracy over there is, been pretty chilling. And again, in that house or where we are just now, it didn't help with Mahmood.
No, I know. I think I was playing PlayStation, and I heard somebody on PlayStation say, "Oh, there's like riots happening in Washington," and I was like, "All right, cool." And so I didn't really think much about it. And then I came off the PlayStation and had a look at Twitter and was like, "No, wait a minute! Like this has been like some sort of half-arsed military coup or non-military coup like that's happened." I think for like what you were saying there, like I was thinking about it the next day, and I was like, the media were almost trying to make it comical. It wasn't getting taken as seriously as what, after, like you're saying, see, after I laughed at that guy's furry fucking helmeted hat, like the fucking horned hat, and I had a laugh at the person, the sort of, what looked like somebody that had never done any kind of athletics in their life, try to climb up a fucking wall and fell off the wall.
Aye.
And you're like having a good laugh at some fucking idiots. Then I started to think like, right, but wait a minute, like this is basically like the head of the empire, like the head of society. America is like, we live in an American society, and we're watching. Not just like, so the thought that I had was I was thinking these are all just fucking QAnon nutcases, and then when you actually look at it, mate, there was like judges, police officers, middle class people that have absolutely don't identify as racist, don't identify as standing side by side with somebody with a fucking Camp Auschwitz jumper on, and I started to really sort of think about the implications of that and the implications of like, what does this actually mean? What does this mean for us, and what does it mean for like society as a whole? And it's a scary moment, mate. And it was almost like kind of ridiculed as like, oh, these are all just conspiracy nutters, and you're like, it's no. There's people of colour there, as much as they're in a minority. There are black people, Mexican people there, and like I said, like judges, people with actual shit to lose if they. And the other question that really asked myself is, do they really get what they're wanting here? Do they really understand what this means for them? And I think those people are starting to see the consequences with getting arrested and getting jailed and stuff.
Yeah,
but
we've seen that at the airports and stuff like that, and people on their social media asking Trump for pardons and stuff like that, and you're just like, I mean, these people thought, when you see that, whatever the Texas sort of minor celebrity that was private jetting it and stuff like that, and talking about how they were going to take back Washington, and then was like, oh, well, I wasn't meaning violence, and you were like, well, come on now, you flew halfway across the country to pick a fight, and now you're in the front door of your house asking the president who asked you to do this to like pardon you. There is a direct correlation between them, but I think outside the sort of silliness of how some is portrayed, as you say, like there is that serious like iconography of like a seat of power kind of toppling, and I think I seen a thread for an American journalist where they had like pictures of people in the House chamber with like cable ties, so there was like heavily armed guys in body armor, who were there to basically take hostages. I mean, like the plan was to get into the chamber and take hostages, and thankfully, I don't know if you've seen the footage of the police officer diverting the sort of protesters away from the senators that were hiding. There was a black officer who was in one of the hallways as a crowd sort of comes running on him, and he starts to back up the stairs, and he's basically leading this crowd up the stairs because they're like chasing him up these stairs, and he gets to a landing where on one side all the senators are hiding, and on the other side is like his backup, and he manages to divert this crowd just by walking in a certain direction, and they all follow him, and they walk into the sort of backup that then sort of disperses them inside the building. But the guy was being hailed as a hero because who knows what would have happened had any bodies turned they're just right down the corridor. They would have been in rooms full of senators, and things could have got way different than they actually did.
I think for the purposes of like a Democrats, even though I'm not talking about Democrats as in like Nancy Pelosi, but for like somebody that believes in democracy is like the sort of best political way that we've come up with or whatever. I'm thankful they didn't get to the votes, and because that's what their whole goal was, to sort of try and snatch and grab these fucking votes that they were counting, and try and sort of like delegitimize the election of Biden. I mean, that's how dangerous. That's where it's like there's like a section of these people that thought they were in like a playground that don't see this as anything sort of serious. It's almost like making fun, like we're saying, people are making fun of it on the internet, but actually like what they were trying to do was very, very dangerous. And some of the images that came out of it shocked me to my core. Like I said, judges, police officers, people of colour standing side by side with a guy with a fucking Camp Auschwitz jumper just really shocked me, mate.
I mean, don't get me wrong, it was a really shoddy gallows when you see the picture, but they set a gallows up outside the Capitol. These people mean
business, mate. These people mean business. And I think like one of the big things that really I started to go fuck off, man, was Biden's bullshit about this is un-American. You don't know America, mate. You don't know. This is what the problem is that you're so disconnected that you don't realise is that this is how many people voted for this guy. How close was this election? This election should have been a fucking monumental landslide. And although he did win it convincingly in the end, it did run closer than what you would expect a fascist to get. And somebody that has ran their country into ground during a global pandemic, openly backed up racist and white supremacists. You would expect this guy to lose handsomely, and he didn't. So, like, that whole this is un-American, that means nothing to these people. They don't buy into your America. Yeah. So Trumpism, or like that, and what I mean by that sort of Trumpism, like the sort of I'll say what I like, I'll do what I like, you know, like basically Eric Cartman, like that sums up sort of Trumpism. That isn't going anywhere. That is not going to go anywhere to me. You know what I mean? So they need to either
guys like Cruz and Jones and that Stoughton, you know, the support. I think there's a couple of really shady characters in the GOP who would quite happily become, you know, Trump's heir apparent. And I think guys like Ted Cruz are almost the dictionary definition of what like a bad politician is. I mean, Ted Cruz ran for president in 2016 against Trump, where Trump claimed that his father was involved in the Kennedy assassination, and you know, basically I basically said his wife was ugly and all sorts of stuff. Now, through this like stop the steal nonsense, Ted Cruz has been a leading cheerleader. I mean, you couldn't be merry a bootlicker than to see and hear some of the things that Trump had to say about him, and then be the guy that's leading the charge for his bullshit. I mean, Spineless just doesn't even cover it, and then we've got guys like Jones, and there's others out there who are looking at this 74 million block of people and thinking to themselves, you know what I mean, like, maybe I could be president one day if I can get on side with these people.
This is it, mate. What comes next is the question. And I think like for an ideological, or like for an ideology that sort of tries to play itself as the ideology of men and like the strong man, like what kind of man is Ted Cruz? What kind of man is Donald Trump? Like these guys are fucking pussies, man, like absolute cucks. And you're running about with your AR-15s or your wire ties in your armour, somehow thinking that these cunts are here and that they represent you, and they represent nothing other than what you're trying to fight against. It's so weird to watch. Another thing that was really sort of screaming to me is the whole, what happened to like sort of democracy and freedom in the American way? It's almost like, well, it doesn't work for the sort of straight white male anymore, so we don't want it. We actually want dictatorship. Now that democracy doesn't work in my favour, it can go and fuck itself, and I'll just take whatever's, do you know what I mean, that I think is the best option for me and my kind.
Absolutely.
And it's disgusting, mate.
Here as well, but I mean, like the reaction for the UK government to these events was absolutely shocking. I mean, Boris Johnson obviously put out a very kind of like mealy-mouthed tweet about, oh, violence is bad, like, you know, thoughts and prayers or whatever nonsense he tweeted. But what I thought was more telling was like the day after when they're talking to Priti Patel, the Home Secretary, and she's flat out refusing to condemn guys like Donald Trump and stuff like that for their behaviour, and you're just like, hold on a minute, like, this is no, like, you know, the whole world is standing up condemning it, and we've got UK officials going, well, I mean, well, you know, I don't know, you know what I mean, like, like that, it's extremely worrying for me, you know what I mean, like, he's an outgoing president, like, his administration's 40 bits, people are sacking, resigning, and, you know, walking away. There's, you know, people terrified that they're never going to work again, having been associated with his administration, and rightfully so. You know what I mean? But for them to be so lame over there at the minute, but yet find our government still so like compliant, is just. And there's no political incentive to mealy mouth it. You could just go, it's a disgrace, it should never happen. And they lose no political ground by actually just saying the right thing for once. And even then, they still refuse to do it. And you're just like, fuck yous, man. Like,
I don't know. I think they will probably think that they would lose some political ground. I think Trump's got a lot of supporters in this country. They all wrap themselves in a fucking butcher's apron, but he's got a lot of support, especially amongst the Farages and no doubt the Rees-Moggs. And I think like Boris, I mean, Trump should be his fucking, the way he's been and the way that he's come into politics, Trump's probably his fucking idol. Do you know what I mean? They like idolise this guy. He's managed to convince working class people that somehow a privileged billionaire that went to military school is like some sort of representative of middle or working class people. So they aspire to be like him. They want to be like him. Do you know what I mean? Like that's the whole like. So we've seen fucking Matt fucking Hancock on Good Morning Britain. I hate that, and I still hate that fucking Piers Morgan is some sort of like a bastion of like sort of the middle ground here always. I'll never get out of that, mate. I'm never ever going to fucking get out of that. But he's one of the very few people that actually holds these cunts to account in recent times. Do you know what I mean? For his own reasons. But we watched Matt Hancock and he was getting pressed on like, do you want to say that you regret voting against the school meals thing. He just kept coming back and saying, I'm happy that it's been resolved. I'm happy that it's been resolved. But it's just political speak for basically going, fuck yourself. I'm not going back on anything that I've ever done. And I had a very brief conversation with somebody on Twitter where they were like, actually, can I believe this? And I was like, no, I can, because their whole ideological outlook is that they've got where they are through their own hard work, which is absolute delusional. So in that ideology also exists that if you're poor, that you're there for a reason and that everything is there for you to get yourself out of it. And that includes your kids. So if you think that you're going to get a free ride or that your children are going to get a free ride, that's going to set this dangerous precedent of like, handing out stuff for free. And so, and the worrying thing for that is that people were actually backing that up in the comments, mate. Like going, I don't think people should be handed stuff for free. I've worked for everything that I've got, and it's just like you just want to fucking slap these people into reality.
Cool for you. I mean, moving back to more UK stuff, there is that attitude there. I mean, you've seen it reflected if we're talking about the similarities between guys like Trump and guys like Johnson, and their inability to pass stimulus in America. They've been a wee bit better organised here, but there has been massive gaps. And the one that keeps coming back time and time, and I don't get why at this point this government just doesn't go, this is like the third or fourth time school meals has come up and bit us in the arse in the middle of a pandemic. Why don't we just put enough money into it to resolve the issue once and for all? Because every time it falls short, we're going to face this shitstorm that we've faced 4 times this year already. So learn the lesson and just like fix it. You know what I mean? Like, the latest one with the £5-6 worth of stuff going for 30 quid. I mean, that is just reflective of the ideology of profiteering that we've seen throughout the entire pandemic, whether it be PPE, whether it be, where vaccines are going to get rolled out, or all these other things that have been sort of monetized by the government almost unnecessarily. Like, obviously, school meals is going to be another one, and what people were getting to feed families for somewhere between 7 and 10 days, just shameful, man. Like, just disgusting.
No, mate. I mean, a bag, like a money bag of tuna. Like, how do you know what I actually thought? Because the company that supplied that to the families, I mean, I'm sure you've seen it. The people are sharing their Instagram feed where they were like,
they followed government guidelines.
No, like the sort of like, here's what we supply to Fettes College in Edinburgh, and it's all like pret-a-manger, fucking, like kids coming in and getting their fucking exactly. And so I think that you can't help but feel that they deliberately make these things dehumanizing so that you don't take it. And so if they've allocated, say they go 1 million kids are in poverty and it's £5 per kid, or 30 quid per kid, there's £30 million we need to allocate to this. Okay, great. But if we can get half of them not to take that, do you know what I mean? Like that sort of like, there's another £15 million that we can siphon off the top into your mates' pockets through their companies. And you sort of try not be that skeptical about it, but it's hard not to be, when it comes to like this
point, it's almost impossible not to be, because we've just seen so much of it, particularly in the last year. I mean, it's always going to be part of what they do because it's what they do. But I mean, this year, it's been at a level and a brashness, like just a brazenness that it's just unacceptable, man. Like, the notion that every single thing is a commodity that's up for sale when people are actually in genuine need is just fucking nonsense to me. So it is like, just help people get it done, and then we'll work the rest out as we go. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, mate. The whole thing in America actually raised a bit of a question for me, and I think it's a question that I've asked before, and I think we've asked before. I like people like Paul Sweeney and Loki, who, I mean, don't know about yourself. I speak for myself that I feel like have got a better understanding of politics than I do. So, like historical politics as well. But watching people of like, let's just say the moderate right or like right of centre standing side by side with Holocaust deniers, KKK members, whatever fuckers that you want, the scum of the earth, which in these sort of riots in America. Like, do you think that the left can actually put their own distaste for the other factions of the left to one side to try and sort of like have this kind of social impact that this sort of Trumpism's having, because it feels very much like through the media that the left has been sort of divvied up into these wee tiny factions that can't actually agree with each other. Whereas when you look at the right, it seems to be that the moderates are so sick and no having it the way that they want it, that they're willing to stand side by side with these fucking cretins to get the change that they think that they want.
I think probably what we'll see, again, similar to what happened just in the last American election there, was that I think it'll be more that people come to a breaking point than people learn to unify. And I think we know that a number of Biden's, record-breaking votes were actually like anti-Trump votes rather than pro-Biden votes in a lot of cases. And I think when it comes to like left and right, particularly in the UK, it'll be that people come to a breaking point, almost like they did at, the post-Thatcher, major, like, as Blair came in, we had this idea that things were going to be different and new. And I think we need to get to a place again where folk are so desperate for change that they can throw off some of what we've been putting up with. And then at that point, it's about whether or not somebody comes in and looks like they're going to be change and earn it, or come in and deliver. You know what I mean? That's going to be the difference between a Biden and a Sanders, or a Corbyn and a Starmer. You know what I mean? Like, this is the paths that, the left are going to have to choose between. And I don't think either of the two of them get out of the line with people just being sickened by what we're currently having to put up with. And but I'm there. I'm fucking way past there. I have been for, a very long time. But I think I'm a minority, unfortunately. I think
that Scotland, a lot of people, I think the majority of people of Scotland are like that, and I think that explains the sort of nationalism that we see. And I don't, obviously, you can qualify different types of nationalism, but I think, like, historically, nationalism has generally been a bad thing for, especially the people that live in that fucking country. But we know that the Scottish nationalist sort of movement has been a different type, a more progressive type of nationalism. But but also I'm willing to overlook a lot of the things that I see within the SNP that I don't like. I mean, I'll talk about it, but I'll still vote for them. And the reason for that being is that they feel like the only viable way out. I mean, I don't necessarily see Scottish independence as something that's like pure, even if it, I would do it no matter what. I feel like it's the right choice, but it also, bigger than that, I feel like it's a way out of this sort of like perpetual right-wing English governments. And like, we've had two Labour governments in the last 30 years or whatever, 40 years nearly. So this perpetual sort of English right-wing governments coming in, or neoliberal, look at it like it was under Thatcher. So I don't know. I can kind of see that in Scotland, where people put their individual issues like gender, the GRA, Football Offence Act, these things that are like, fuck's sake, like Alex Salmond's clearly like historical sort of handsy thing that went on. But you're willing to put these things to one side because we've got an actual goal. So it's like, once if we did get, or when we get independence, the SNP won't be my automatic vote. I'll start to actually like look at the different sort of options. And I think like that sort of, I can see the left kind of doing that, but that gets really shit posted and gets sort of talked on Twitter and amongst sort of media as well. But
opportunity now more than ever in Scotland for where Richard Leonard gone during the week. I mean, obviously we had tweeted that we're going to be speaking on Wednesday or Thursday this week, I can't remember. And then, we circumstance got in the way, and we recorded a couple of days later. So we've subsequently been able to chat about, obviously Richard Leonard moving on. It's a bit of a non-event for me, really. I mean, if you're third to the Tories in Scotland, eventually it's going to be too much. I think the manner in which he's went, or appears to have went, where donors have gone to Starmer, is maybe a bit shady. But at the same time, Labour have now got an opportunity to make maybe a positive change, 4 months ahead of an election. And I really hope that they take the considerations into account, because in an independent Scotland we will need an effective Labour movement, and without an effective Labour Party, it's going to be pretty difficult to do that in the early years. You know what I mean? Like, I hope they don't just stick blindly to unionism. With some of the names that have been bandied about, don't give me a lot of hope. But you know, hopefully, like you say, if we can get to that independence, then there will be a bit more room for the left. Like, I'm quite a fan of a number of the Green policies in Scotland. I'm also, you know, quite a fan of a number of the representatives of the Green Party as well. Like, and you know, some of them handle themselves really well. I think, you know, any opportunity for them to grow down the line would be amazing. You know what I mean? They have been on a quite slow but steady growth in Scotland, and obviously, you know, form part of the government and stuff like that. So hopefully they can build that this year as well, because in the absence of a Labour Party, we need other left-leaning parties to actually keep some of the more right and centre-right, you know, notions of the SNP in check.
Absolutely. The one thing that really sort of I kind of get my head round when it comes to Scottish Labour, because it is I don't care what anybody says, and I mean even people that we've met person to person, if they're in the Labour movement, like your party sits on its knees and sucks the cock of the party in Westminster, and that is why it won't get behind independence in this country. And there is no way, and I mean this, like there is no way that the people that we've met don't feel that it's potentially the right thing to do, but they just won't say it. That's my opinion on it. Is like they're reasonable people. They say all the right things until it comes to the independence argument, and you're basically just sucking the dick a Westminster and that.
It's the line whip into it. It's the party line.
Yeah,
if you're going
absolutely.
To get in the party,
and the thing that you raised there about the donors, that really just, that is what's wrong with politics, mate. Like I get, I'm the same with you. I think,
Leonard, but that's the wrong way to do it.
Yeah, for sure. Just to be like, oh, so the money men came in and went, get rid of this cunt. He's not going to win fuck all in May or June, and so they enforced it. It's like, surely your performance is based on, I mean, his performance was shite anyway. And if they came out and went, oh, the reason that we've sacked him is because he's shite, you'd be like, oh, fair play. But just the whole fact that
I was quite
didn't...
a fan of the notion of like a national care service. I know that's an idea that's maybe not exclusively his, but it was something that he was championing in the event that Labour ever managed to float themselves into some form of power up here.
Right.
So he was a bit gaffy at times, and, you know, probably didn't pick, you know, his fights as effectively as he should have. But like, they weren't all bad ideas. But
no.
It definitely sounds like it got absolutely shafted.
So that's it, man. Like, I'm with you. It would almost be like the leader of the Lib Dems. I don't even know who the leader of the Lib Dems is. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's so insignificant.
Is it not actually still Willie Rennie? Have they not just went, it's so pointless changing leader that we just left it with the same guy that everybody already hates anyway?
And I think even worse is I don't even know who the leader of I don't know who the leader of the UK Lib Dems are either. Last one I remember is the Jesus guy.
There was Swinson in between times until she
that's right. That's right. That's how, again, like
some lord or other. They did the Labour thing last time where they appointed a Lord of the Realm. I can't remember his name.
So it's just
a generic guy.
It just represents everything that's wrong with politics, really. That the money men can sort of crack the whip, and the leader of the actual party can tell the leader of the shitty version or the wee brother that they're going to need to change. But this is kind of like what you were saying earlier on about. I think you were saying earlier on about sort of viable, sort of electable candidates, like Sanders versus Biden. It's like almost like Biden's more electable, Starmer's more electable than Jeremy Corbyn. And you're like, well, here's a word of warning, Tony Blair. 2 words of warning. You know what I mean? Like, that's what happened the last time. Like, and do you really? It destroyed your movement. Do you know what I mean? Like, don't do that again. And it looks like that's the way that
Labour were in. I seen polls yesterday, surveying polls yesterday in England, saying that Labour had actually took a lead in the polls up to like 41%. Tories had dropped down into like the high 30s. So there's in the last fortnight or so been something like a 5-10 point swing in Labour's favour. But is that because people are finally seeing this government for the absolute shit show and shambles that it is, or is it that the appearance of somebody like Starmer is giving off Tony Blair vibes that people can get behind? You know what I mean? I don't know. Probably a bit of both, to be honest with you.
Absolutely. And I think, like, the Tories would just roll out, well, Starmer's a Blairite, look what Blair's government did, and they left us in the shit. Just that whole bullshit. I mean, I've actually seen people starting to bring that back out the fucking arsenal again on Twitter when they're talking to each other about, like, the last Labour government left this place in a mess. No, a global, that would be like blaming the current Tories on not the reaction to coronavirus, which you can criticise all you want, but actually saying that they've caused coronavirus. It's like, no, it was something even bigger. It was bigger and deeper than that, and I don't think you do it much justice by blaming Ed Balls or Gordon Brown or Tony Blair on, like, the financial institutions of the world collapsing.
They will have made decisions that contributed to it, but
absolutely,
at the time, it was bigger than them.
Absolutely, I blame neoliberalism. Fuck them.
When we talk about the Labour, I'm a bit worried about when we talk about Scottish Labour, that somebody seems to be wanting to float the idea of reanimating Gordon Brown's dead corpse. I don't.
I've not seen this. So is he on the short list?
No, I've seen a few folk being like, Gordon Brown's the man to lead Scottish Labour, and you're like, is he? I don't see it. You know what I mean? Like, I think given that things like the vow to this day still directly contribute to why people no longer have faith in the Labour Party, I think putting somebody like Gordon Brown at the head of the organisation in Scotland would just be catastrophic. I mean, it would be hilarious in a sense, but like his day has surely been and gone already. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, do the guy a favour and just
so what?
Let's get this one out. You know what I mean?
We're sitting here talking about how, like, the nationalist movement in Scotland is like a progressive and blah blah blah. We see ourselves as a progressive country. As much as I'll acknowledge, like, the history and hands up to all that, like, apart slavery and, like, apart like the shit that's went on in the world, colonisation. But can you imagine George Galloway versus Gordon Brown as, like, potential votes for, like, representatives, bad enough, but leaders, like actual people that would have some sort of fucking influence in this country?
I stepped into like an episode of Doctor Who where they went back to 1993. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I mean, what do you feel about Galloway's triumphant return to watch Queen of the South, but during COVID?
Then get arrested.
Did they get arrested?
He get questioned for breaching COVID protocols because he did a whole thing about the First Minister had said, stay out, don't travel, and he was crossing the border on New Year's Day again at pure in-your-face sturgeon sort of thing, and then went
freedom. George Galloway definitely thinks that Braveheart.
You know what I mean?
George Galloway definitely thinks that William Braveheart was, like, historically accurate. Do you know what I mean? He's that level of fucking nutcase.
I pay him absolutely no attention other than just you see the occasional batshit thing that, like, trends or whatever, and you're like, right, cool, there's just George Galloway being George Galloway again. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
I think it's hilarious. Again, the other one I seen this week was that Nigel Farage is starting in a party in Scotland that is going to make a positive case for the union, and I'm like, like that is a new level of delusion that I didn't think was possible. But then I think when you look at somebody like Farage, who, an egotist who has actually, like, influenced the path of England and has been held up as an example by guys like Trump in America, and that, of course, he's got the confidence that, he's going to come up here and make some sort of union-saving move. But you'd need to forget that every time he comes up here, he gets literally chased out of town. You know what I mean? Like, so, like, the balls on the guy, as much as he's an absolute wankstain, like, the balls to be like, I'm going to go up there and change the minds of all Scottish people. Like, there's a level of, like, delusion in play there that I kind of admire a wee bit. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, and they get chased into a fucking pub in Edinburgh, the most English Scottish city that fucking exists. I mean, Mon down the Gallagher. Do you know what I mean? Mon, bring it, mate. But do you know what it just reminds me of? It reminds me, and it still exists. It's just that what you're saying is bang on, mate, and it still exists. As soon as you say that sort of level of delusion, I just get that image of 2014 with the dude playing the Imperial March, and it brings us sort of like back to Labour and the Labour Party sending their Westminster representatives up to reassure the hearts and minds of the Scottish people that their interests are taken seriously and that independence isn't the way forward. And this is where I can actually get a bit annoyed at the sort of Labour movement in Scotland, where you're like, this is what you're siding with, man. Like, just remember that the reason that people are so passionate about independence is because of your own hubris and your own arrogance and your actual fucking clambering to stand side by side with fucking Tories. Don't ever forget that. Like, don't ever fucking forget that. You'll forget it at your peril. The Labour movement in Scotland's hanging by the fucking thread of its teeth. And the wrong move here will snap it. But yeah, that arrogance exists in there. Like, see, not to generalise, but the majority of people don't understand independence in England. Like, when I've spoke to people that I worked with previously in a corporate setting down south, and they would always be wanting to speak to me, not because of me, but just because I was Scottish at that time, and they would say, "You voting yes?" And I would say, "Yep," and it would almost be like, how can you even consider that? I don't understand that. And it's almost like you want to go, well, we know change is hard, but it's usually quite worthwhile. So we don't want to be, like, it's for our own purposes. I think there's a lot of them think, it is from my perspective, mate, and I know it is for yours. A lot of them think that it's this whole anti-English thing and that we don't want to be part of their thing. And it's like, no, we want our own thing.
No.
We just want our own thing. We just want to, you know what I mean? But that arrogance that you're talking about, that runs like a vein through their society. That's why they voted for Brexit. That's why you know what I mean? They still sit and tell people that 3.5 million people have been vaccinated, which is absolute horseshit. Like, it's like 500,000 people have had both jabs, which means that they're actually fucking vaccinated. But the 3.5 million people have had the first jab. They're not vaccinated yet.
Fudging the numbers, isn't it? Fudging the numbers by saying everybody needs 2 doses, but when you get your first dose, they're counting that as one vaccination, and then when you get your second dose, it's like when they were doing the PPE thing and they were counting 2 gloves as individual bits of PPE. So instead of doing a pair of gloves as one bit of PPE, each individual glove was saying PPE. Yeah. And like, this is that, you know what I mean? Like, they're just going to fudge everything, man. Like, when it comes to data, they're not the best anyway. I mean, I think just this week, with the Law and Order Home Secretary, whose own parents probably wouldn't get into the country based on her rules, or her own words, by the way, lost 400,000 police records. So there's a pretty decent chance that Amanda could have come in and slipped through the net anyway, because our department is completely fucking useless. You know what I mean? Like, 400,000 criminal records were destroyed and lost. You know what I mean? Like, the first estimate was 150,000, but they're saying it could be anywhere up to 400. So that's like criminal convictions, that's like court appeal, all sorts of stuff has just went straight out the window.
How many times has that happened? Well, they've lost a laptop.
Well, certainly more than it should have, but the whole thing's, I mean, it's almost like maybe things like school meals and that are deliberately not resolved so that they can use the furore every couple of weeks to like hide all this other fucking nonsense that they're doing in the back. Because, they're definitively and like verifiably bad on every single front that they're being measured on. It's like, it's incredible.
Aye, absolutely. But so like in that sort of sense, they don't even respect their own people, and like, so why would they respect us? Why would they care about us? Like, they don't. It just,
the Home Secretary already like survived a bullying scandal where recommendations were made to the Prime Minister to accept her resignation, and for the first time in all British political history, that advice wasn't taken. So she's already survived, she's been binned for 2 scandals in her previous role. She's now had 2 major scandals on this one. The woman's bulletproof, and I think when you look at the next one that's on the horizon with the UK government and its workers' rights, like Patel, Gove, Johnson, Raab, etc., all wrote the book on essentially devaluing workers' rights, and now, they're starting to push on this. So I think Patel and all these ones can be as incompetent as they like in the role, because so long as they agree with the overarching view that people's, services and people's living conditions need to deteriorate, then the government's just going to brass neck it and keep them in play anyway. And that's exactly what they've done. They've done it with Cummings, they're doing it with Patel. You know what I mean? Like, the list will probably go on and on and on. You know what I mean? Like, they need ended, man.
Aye, so I think like maybe if you taking like a sort of neutral and look none of that, maybe the expectation that they'll do anything right is maybe insanity, rather than you know what I mean? Just expect the worst. Just expect it. They don't care.
Devalue institutions.
They don't give a fuck, and that's exactly. See, just what you just said there, man. That's what's happened in America. They've just completely devalued and delegitimise the institutions, and so their societies like seems to be like sort of the arse is falling out and it's crumbling beneath them. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about as far as like sort of UK or US politics was concerned before we?
It's been suitably depressing enough, I think.
Absolutely. But what are you going to go into next?
I don't normally talk celebrity shit, right? Because like I honestly, like, the notion of celebrity doesn't interest me at all. I think we see that it's maybe a side effect of talking to folk with a level of celebrity pretty regularly. I don't know, but it's never been something that interested me. But two particular stories like jumped out at me this week.
Okay.
When I say jumped out at me, I mean they like came at me like a fucking alien face hugger. So I figure we might as well just like touch them.
Right, go for it.
Or no touch them, as the case may be after this. Did you hear about Azalea Banks digging up her dead cat and boiling it?
No.
Right.
So, go for it. Tell me what the fuck.
So Azalea Banks, she's a rapper. Apparently, her cat died a couple of months ago. So it wasn't even recent, like a couple of months ago. There was like some tabloid shit about her. She was over Insta, she was out in her back garden digging up the cat. And then essentially, I think somebody was saying that she was having the skull gilded, like she was having the cat's skull like plated in gold. So like she was boiling the cat down to like free up the skull, instead of in the modern world just sending a picture of your cat to like a 3D printer and having them like make a plastic one, for example. I don't know. But this was like the explanation for the madness was that she wanted to like have a dead cat skull gilded in
which
gold.
is slightly better than my first thought, which was like dead cat soup. I was like, is she fucking making this thing?
She was apparently drinking and eating out the bowl and stuff like that.
Oh, no way, man.
People had it all banned and taken down and all the rest of it. And the other one was, did you hear the Armie Hammer one? The guy who played the Lone Ranger in that shit Johnny Depp movie?
No.
So he was like texting back and forth with some like fuck buddy about how he wanted to like cannibalise her. And she's fucking posted it to like every sort of newspaper on the face of the planet, and there was people like running like full chat streams of this guy fantasizing about essentially cannibalizing this lassie and like keeping her in his fridge and all the rest of it, and you're just like, aye, fucking mental. So I think like the pressure that we spoke about at the start of the show is as present in celebrity life as it is, you know what I mean?
For sure, mate.
The Dubai.
Well, we'll talk about that in 2 seconds because I do want to talk about Celtic actually, and we can touch on celebrity in general, I suppose, just as like a nice wee segue. But did you hear that Kanye had sex with Jeffree Star, who's like a male YouTuber?
I mean, I fair play to them. I don't care, but I did see it. It was a bit weird.
Absolutely, mate. I do not give a fuck who Kanye West. Kanye West could shag whoever he wants, like, but I think like when we were talking about back when he was doing the 8 zeros on his phone with his MAGA hat and stuff, there was a lot of people out there being like, were concerned for him, like we're really concerned for him. And I was talking to him, and obviously like Sharon's big into these things and she keeps up with like sort of celebrity, and I was like, see the name of their show, like Keeping Up with the Kardashians, is that like a challenge to any guy that goes anywhere fucking near them? Because like like, honestly,
you
like
what? To be this crazy to write this.
I mean, I'm not saying. I mean, before anybody likes having sex with a guy doesn't make you mentally ill, right? Like, absolutely fucking not.
No.
Even if that's the thing that's like, if people like were concerned for them in their life and it turns out they've been closeted gay, and that's the thing that's been really causing a lot of friction in their life, not being able to accept themselves or whatever it might be. Like, I feel for you. Like, I feel for you, and like, and I hope that you get it, but. This guy's been spiraling down a rabbit hole for like 2 years now, and he's been getting wheeled out. You know what I mean? Like he's been on the Kardashians, like Trump's been in Joe Rogan, like all these like big things, and people have been going concerned for him, and the people around about him have been talking about like how this is his genius and his flow states just takes him to these places, and he's a bit zany and all that. I get that, but you could clearly see that this guy was not right, and I think this sort of just kind of confirms it that he's not been right. But also, like, how many men do they want to chew up and spit out, like, before they start to realise that they're the fucking problem? Like, seriously, like, it's crazy. I mean, like, there's a laundry list of them. Like, the guy Odin, is it Omar Odin or something like that. That guy split up with one of the Kardashians and ended up overdosing on Viagra and with like a brothel in New Orleans or something. He had to get his stomach pumped and blood pressure taken down because there's the other guy, Scott Disick. He's married to one of them. He's severely suicide attempts, clinically depressed. Bruce Jenner turned into Caitlyn Jenner. I don't know if that's had anything to do with them. I hope no. I don't think so. But also, when you see the footage of him before he transitioned and the way that they treated him, the way that they treat their boyfriends and their husbands, man, it is a bit fucking like there's a pattern that's starting to emerge here, and there's no smoke without fire. So many of them have had their boyfriends and husbands have had mental health issues that it's just off the fucking charts. Do you know what I mean? So, there's to like try to keep up with them literally cost lives, I think, to a certain extent. And I'm actually surprised that it hasn't cost them one of their lives. Do you know what I mean? Because of the pressure they put on themselves to keep up with us.
Up with the celebrity in general. I mean, I don't know if you've seen the articles doing the rounds through the week about the, influencers and types who are here, the people who are trying to, emulate these lifestyles. We're getting a lot of stick for travelling to Dubai. And they were basically like, fuck it, we're out sunbathing, we're out having like 5-star meals, we're out having like cocktail parties, and it's all these Love Island types and whatnot. And obviously they got a fair amount of stick, a big bit of backlash. And obviously we've seen a similar thing with, the Celtic bullshit as well, where like read the room. Like I think, notions of celebrity are, obviously double-sided. You've got, that, as you say, like Azalea Banks and Armie Hammer, who, they're clearly just like ordinary people who are going through something, and it's just unfortunate that, the world is watching them while they do it. The Kardashian thing's maybe a bit more deliberate because they are obviously creating and selling, a sort of brand and a lifestyle. But the folk out there, they know that are trying to emulate them in that lifestyle and the 5-star life, the sunshine and cocktails nonsense, like, just get it by the new, man. Like, we're all sitting here fucking locked up in living rooms for like days at a time. Like, we don't need your fake life making us feel worse about who we are than we already do. And you just straight up just shouldn't be doing it right now.
I've got two things to put to that. One, I know somebody who was in Dubai the week before Christmas. They were there for 10 days. And the whole thing is, you can go to Dubai and you can go to the UAE, you can go to Abu Dhabi and all these places, because when you land in the airport, you get tested.
One sec.
You got to put your light on. Nice one, dude.
I am just conscious of like how fucking ridiculously dark it got there in a very short space of time.
Aye, mate, it's that time of day, isn't it? It's only 2 o'clock, fuck's sake.
What?
It's only 2 o'clock. It feels like, I was thinking that myself there, dude. I was thinking that must have got dark outside. So I got two things to add to this. Like, I know somebody that was in Dubai, they'd been there for 10 days, and the whole sort of thing is that you can go to the UAE, Abu Dhabi, Dubai, because they test you when you land at the airport. And so there's everybody that's on the island is negative. Well, they get tested when they landed and never get their negative results until they had been back in the UK for 5 days. So all of that is fucking bullshit. None of that's happening. Basically, Dubai are just like, just come here and spend your fucking money. We need to keep this, because that's what they are. They're basically like a fucking ridiculously overpriced tourist attraction, right? The second one is that I heard somebody speaking the other day, and again, I'm not going to share any names, that knows an influencer that was sharing pictures of Dubai for 2 years ago to seem like they're there just now.
Right.
So it's even more fake than what you think it is. Do you know what I mean? So it's this sort of influencer lifestyle. People are actually putting up fake pictures of previous trips to try and make it seem like they qualify for this elite group of people that can just ignore the global pandemic, go and get their all-inclusive hotels in Dubai. And do you know what? Honestly, see if that's what your life is about, go and fucking do it. I don't give a fuck. Like, just don't bring it back here and kill fucking folk. Do you know what I mean? Don't put your fucking your own lifestyle and your own social media presence above the lives of your fucking friends and family. Like, genuinely, like, I can't get my head around that. But the one good thing, a celebrity that was this week, I mean, we've done a previous episode on this, but like, I don't know if you've seen anything about the boy Stephen Bell. No, he's another one of these Love Island cunts that's famous for doing fuck all, right?
Okay.
he's resorted, because like he's not making money from Big Brother or whatever like that. He's not resorted, but he's opened an OnlyFans. Like the guy's got an OnlyFans, and he must, I don't know, he must get these birds back. They're only famous in the hope that they'll get famous for shagging him on his OnlyFans or whatever. I don't know. Or maybe he hires people, maybe it's porn stars, whatever, to make his own content because he'll make more money. But he puts CCTV footage on fucking rattling one of these Love Island birds onto his OnlyFans without her permission.
Oh.
Right? Now, mate, see if you've not heard any of this, go and watch it after I've spoken about this. He then started to get cancelled online and put up a fake video where he pretended that he was going to commit suicide.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
So he was then mocking suicide. Then he put up a post on the 31st being like, haha, I'm in Dubai, yous are all fucking stuck in your houses. But then he came back 2 days ago and get immediately arrested. They get lifted at the airport. And I think they lifted him for a combination of the revenge porn, like sexual assault, and breaking the COVID rules, I think, because he was just swanning back in. And I think that's like a real positive thing for celebrities to see cunts like that, because that's also setting a very dangerous thing up to be thinking that they can share pictures or videos or whoever they want, like without their consent. But also just for them to get a wee dose of reality that you can't just go and fuck off to Dubai during a global pandemic and try and, get your suntan up while everybody else, like you're saying, is dealing with like proper mental health issues. And I think also just to point out that these are the cunts that are rolling out the fucking suicide statistics to try and try and justify them just living a normal life. Or, well, what about the suicides? Suicides are up year on year. They've been up year on year since the last fucking 20 years, you cunt. Like, do you know what to do? Go to Dubai, wall them fucking in and just leave them there. Do you know what I mean? Like, we don't fucking need them. But I think that the Celtic thing actually showed that there's consequences to everything, no matter what you do. Like,
it might Dubai anymore.
Well, no, but not just that. Like, as much as the league season was done and dusted, I think before, the nails were put in the coffin the last week, and that's been a direct consequence of the arrogance of the hierarchy, the upper hierarchy in Celtic, to think that they can continue to organise training when we see them sitting beside fucking Hingley drinking. That arrogance has led to basically like the club's just completely imploded. Do you know what I mean?
What did the board of Celtic FC and the House of Westminster have in common? Like Tory lords, you know what I mean? Like, it's no a coincidence that, some of the people that are on our board are of that ideology. How that's ever been allowed to happen, we all know the answer by like shareholders and stuff like that. But the same hubris and arrogance that is seen at a governmental level has been reflected in the organisation that, managed Celtic's welfare. You know what I mean? Like, it was within the rules. The rules changed on the 23rd. They still had permission. Every fucking team in the world cancelled trips. I mean, the entire German Bundesliga, like, en masse, cancelled trips outside the country. Like, these were really big public points that were made by leagues all across the world. So, like, again, read the room. You know what I mean? Like, they failed to do that. They failed to do it at a time where the team were shocking, where discontent amongst the support is as high as it's ever been in the last 10 to 15 years. We've now dropped 4 points in the subsequent 2 games. I mean, like, it couldn't. I mean, it's been catastrophic on every single level. Like, there is no salvaging feature to it whatsoever. And like, that type of decision making in a company, let's just treat it as the company that they treat it as. Like, performance management wise, like, he doesn't need to roll at every single level that go.
I completely agree, mate.
All the levels, you know what I mean?
Completely agree. I mean, we were talking a couple of weeks ago about like fans' trusts and like taking back control of the club, but that disconnect that we were talking about earlier for the political class or whatever, you're bang on, mate. You're fucking so bang on with that it's the exact same bullshit that makes Celtic think that they can take their squad. Took a guy that didn't even need to go, some crutches. Why is he going to a training camp? That guy,
4 months. You know what I mean?
And do you know what? Like, I've let go, obviously, like, over the course of the full season, but let go any hope of 10 in a row. But genuinely, like, the club don't deserve it, mate. They do not deserve it. Like,
I mean, Rangers have not been spectacular. They've been solid. They've been organised. They've been disciplined exactly as they have been in recent years. And our implosion has allowed that to be, enough. But it's we've done this to ourselves. Like, they have beat us when the opportunity to beat us come round. But the bigger picture is that we just fucking, I don't know, pressure, COVID, 10 years worth of work coming to a head. I have no idea. But like,
absolutely
fell apart at the seams everywhere.
I think for a Celtic fan's perspective, and I don't know if I actually said this when we were talking about this the last time, but when Rangers 10 got stopped, I wish it fucking the 9 had got stopped, but I remember that fucking night when they won that. But when their 10 gets stopped, they were at a crossroads, and Celtic are at that crossroads right now, and we've got a couple of choices. But if the choice is what they did, which was David Murray doubled down on what he'd been doing by that's when the actual shady shit started to go, like the EBTs and stuff, even though I think that a couple of them had been there before. I can't say anything other than, like, I might need to, like, actually, like, not be a supporter of Celtic Football Club if something changes, because it's the whole reason that I'm such an avid and passionate Celtic supporter is like a whole package. It's not just that I was raised, it was my dad's club, that I was raised a Catholic, and the sort of the like the normal shit, like born and raised in the East End of Glasgow, could see Celtic Park from my fucking, I could hear You'll Never Walk Alone on match days from my front door. It was my dad's club. But the thing that's kept me really, as I've become sort of an adult and politically aware, is that we're the light in sort of Scottish football. There's no other there's no other club that's run with an ideology of charity, working classness, like really in the roots of the team. Yeah, and the work that the Green Brigade do for food banks and stats became like a real big thing, has been, and the Celtic FC Foundation brings nothing but pride to me to support that club.
Inspirational across the entire support. I would probably want to just take a wee minute as well as saying well done to the guys at the Green Brigade for recent fundraising, and obviously their voice in terms of like the supporters' discontent. A wee nod to one of the other Celtic pods, Celtic State of Mind, actually raised like fucking 25 grand over Christmas and New Year. They did see the Scottish Cup weekend. They did like a quadruple treble weekend of like programming all across the entire day with like fundraising, and raised £25,000 for charity. Like,
that's incredible.
So like,
that's amazing.
We don't spend a lot of time talking about football and podcasts or other guys out there, like, but fucking well played to them on that front, man. Like, huge credit to like the ethos of the club that you and I both
absolutely I think the question that I've got really is that, do you think a modern football club can live up to that ethos, or do you think that it needs to be a business orientated? Now, I'm going to caveat, because I was just about to say to compete at the highest level. Celtic don't compete at the highest level anymore, but you know what I mean? Like, do you think that
we've made the Champions League 2 at the last 7-8 years? I mean, we're not a top tier club anymore, but
do you think
the money that's moved about elsewhere makes that almost impossible? So
but do you think like a modern football team can live up to that sort of ethos that we're talking about, that people take pride in Celtic having?
I think we can. I think for it to be to the extent we want it to be, like, things need to change. Like, we are at an actual crossroads. Like, we would have preferred to have been there 6 months from now, but we're no. And I think the reality is that change needs to start moving now. Like, the people that have been there, guys like Law, have been there, 15 years, maybe more. Like, old thinking has crippled us, and this is a time for new thinking. Like, how has the game modernised? Where has it changed? How are we? I mean, look, facilities and sort of youth development wise, look at the last 2 games for Celtic, where a predominant, or an increase in the young guys has been necessary as a result of this COVID fiasco that we've shot ourselves in the foot with. Like, I don't think any of these boys look up to it long term. Like, I know boys like Johnson and Henderson have got, a bit of promise about them. I was in the Celtic group chat with my mates going, when was the last time, like, the academy or the development squad produced a player that held down regular first team football? And the answer was Callum McGregor. for the amount of money and time and resources we invest at that level, for us not to be producing any meaningful young talent whatsoever. I mean, guys like Ewan Henderson, who looked promising, have went away and found their level in Serie B, which is no disrespect, you know what I mean? Like, it's just that, you know, we're trying to think about, how do we produce Champions League players, you know what I mean? Like, so
the reality is that we're not.
Exactly. So that whole side of things, for the money, like, we're not getting value for money. We're bringing in 17, 18-year-olds for Arsenal, like Oko Flex, like Afolabi and these types of boys, and then we're never seeing them again, you know what I mean? Like, so everything needs to be rethought from start to bottom. Like, the plan for the last 10 years has failed at the last hurdle, and now we need a new plan.
Aye, absolutely, mate. Absolutely. If you get anything else that you wanted to cover, are you having a wee look at your notes or what? Or I think the last thing that I wanted to talk to you about is that I finally watched and finished Mandalorian.
All right, cool.
And mate, I fucking cried my eyes out of that last episode.
Aye, I mean, we were talking about it. I didn't want to like pure get away, but I knew
tears, fucking tears streaming at my face. Was just like, see when, I mean, I suppose we could put like a sort of warning, but fucking people should have watched it, but if they've not watched it, then fuck them.
Like Mark Hamill was tweeting about it the day after the episode.
Oh right, okay, cool. So, he's got a bigger reach than we have.
Dude, I literally like I was in the living room watching it, and Stace was like chilling out in bed with the iPad, and as the scene finished, I got up and like ran into the bedroom and was like, Stace, like fucking Luke Skywalker was there, and she's like, Matt, you're nearly fucking 40. And I was like,
well, I mean, I don't care. I'm nearly 40, mate. Honestly, like, when I seen, I didn't know that Luke comes into it. I genuinely didn't know. I had sort of kept away from it. That's fine. When the X-Wing came in, and I was like, whatever, the Republic are going to come, they're going to help them, whatever. And then the cloak came off. I just turned around to Sharon and I was like, that's Luke. And she was like, no way. I was like, I'm fucking telling you. It's a Jedi in an X-Wing. It needs to be Luke. See if it's no Luke, I'm going to fucking burn my TV. When the
sparked up, I was pure.
When the green lightsaber came out, I was like, this is Luke, this is it. But genuinely, man, so many emotions. It was like pure, what the fuck? But I
it really well. First season was a bit slow for me, but I think the overall, when you watch the two of them together, it is like a genuine. If you're into your Star Wars, it's the business. You know what I mean? Like,
Jon Favreau needs to write and direct the next movies.
The Fillion character as well. He's been involved in Rebels and Clone Wars and all that.
Right.
So there's a few there that are like. I quite like that the new slate of Star Wars stuff is actually really like female centric. There's a lot of like female writers and female directors that are coming in for the next slate of stuff, including like Ashoka or Ahsoka Tan or whatever it is, played by Dawson and stuff like that. You know? So I think you're going to see that the Rey thing become, you know, there's going to be a lot more sort of female-led projects and stories, which I think is going to be quite interesting.
Well, I'm fucking here for it all, mate. I'm here for it all. After that, I mean, the follow-up trilogy, like the last 3 of the 9, was so disappointing. I was kind of like, maybe I'm just getting too old for Star Wars and stuff. And then seeing Boba Fett and Mando together, I was like, I had a fucking quarter chub. And then when Luke Skywalker came in, it just went fucking full 12 o'clock, man. I was like, pure, oh my fucking God. So I'm here for it all. I'm buzzing for like whatever comes next. So I just wanted to say, like, because you were saying a few weeks ago you should watch Mandalorian. It was just tears were streaming. Fantastic, mate. Absolutely fantastic.
I've been there when the lockdown got announced, and I know that I'd spent a lot of my time gaming. I invested in like a big chunky hard drive to get more stuff onto my PlayStation, because we had Call of Duty. I'm always deleting and having to download and download stuff. And I was like, you know what, let's prepare properly this time for like added time at home and like get it in. So I've got essentially, you know, like I went from like 3 games on my PlayStation to having like 30. And I think I'm actually definitely going to explore that kind of like Twitch thing where I'm going to maybe go back through some of the more popular like games I've played already and like replay them with maybe just like audio or something like that. Because if I'm going to be replaying them anyway, it might be fun just to explore something like that down the line. So that's I'm just trying to think otherwise that I can use it to like fill spare time, but no just be like a pure slouch about it. You know
aye. Do something actually productive.
Aye. So we'll see.
We'll see what happens, mate.
That was good, mate.
Fantastic, mate. Another like, I think every 2 weeks pacing's actually been really good. What I did notice, which was funny, is that even though the pacing of our episodes has been down by 50%, the listenership's only been down by like 20. But so that actually means
like went up by multiple times.
We're going up, like the actual view and listenership's actually creeping up because it should have went down, but if we stayed the same, it would have went down by 50%. So the stats that I get is how many downloads over 30 days. So if we do 4 episodes over the 30 days, and then that's our benchmark and the stats, it's saying it's went down 20% as we've halved the productivity. So it's going up, and we've noticed the YouTube creeping up and stuff. So it's really good, which gives us the motivation to do these things. But genuinely just coming in and sitting and video calling with you every 2 weeks is just so good for me, mate. Like, genuinely.
Same here, mate. I mean, it's one of the ones where, you know, I'm super conscious of that you're trying to get this business off the ground and, you know, go out there and help people. So, you know, I know that there has probably been times I've been like, you know, I'd probably like to have done one this week or whatever, but that's Christmas and New Year out the way. I'm quite happy to, you know, I've got some good ideas we'll talk about things in that, you know, Cambridge Analytica, like QAnon type stuff. There's some really interesting people out there that I think we could get based on, you know, our back catalogue. There's obviously loads of like Scottish artists that I've started following in terms of music. I think once music venues get moving again, you know, if, you know, musicians want to come and line up at the door, we'll have them. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely, mate.
We'll get moving again. Like, so I'm quite excited about some of the guests that we can start to build on the new year. A couple of authors that I really want to get in over the course of the next couple of months and stuff.
I made a promise to whom will not to you, so stop the party. I tried to reconcile a life I lived a while, just stop the party. Feeding lies like you'll never know. I don't need to be unhappy with a life to call my own. We'll end up burning bridges sat upon a selfish throne. I will march along this path of ambitious, forceful ties. I'll be dead before it crashes down before my eyes. I know we'll make it through smiles and trials of fire. We'll make the party. I see right through it, the great deceptive fade. You call the party. Feeding lies like you'll never know. I don't need to be unhappy with a life to call my own. We'll end up burning bridges sat upon